All right. Welcome, everybody. My name is David Fidua, founder, creator of Invent Tribe. We coach and teach inventors how to license their own products. And so I want to do a live Q&A to help people get their products licensed on the market and selling. I always start off every webinar. More specifically, I start off every webinar to the public. So it's a lot of people that don't necessarily know me with a little introduction of myself to let you know who I am, what I've done, where I come from. And one of the big reasons I do that is, whenever you're following anybody, and this is a rule of advice that I do, is whenever I'm trying to accomplish something, I look to the people that I'm listening to and I say, well, what have they done? Have they done the thing I'm trying to do? And another great benefit or attribute is, have they taught other individuals how to do the same thing? And I feel that that's a super important aspect, because some people, they can do it, but they can't necessarily translate those skills or abilities to somebody else. And so I've licensed 5 of my own products. Working on number 6. I got some interest here the last couple of weeks. That's been a ton of fun. And then I've coached over 170 inventors to license their own products. So I jokingly say I got good at inventing, and then I got great at helping other people how to license their own products. And so, yes, I do invent my own products. I am receiving my own royalty checks, and I coach and teach other people how to do it in quite, successful way. And so this is an open Q&A, so ask any questions you have. I'd love to answer them, do whatever I can to help you, move you through the process of getting yourself moving forward and getting your product on the shelf. And so I'll jump over to the Q&A box. Ray said, hello, David, how are you? I just wanted to say hi. This is Ray. Hey, Ray, I'm glad you're on. Thank you for joining. Do let me know if you have any questions. I appreciate you, and I appreciate your hard work that you do and everything with your innovation. And so let me jump over to the next question. So thank you, Ray. Gary said, good evening. This is Gary here. I'm curious to know how you go about getting market validation on a product, and did you get my email earlier today? Yes, I did, Gary. And so market validation is a very interesting thing. A lot of people, they want to know it's going to work before it works. And that's the hardest part, right? Is they look at a product and they say, well, if we can validate it in the market, then we know it'll work, then we'll make money. And so people don't want to start a project until they have that market validation. But that is this, for a lot of companies, that's what they want, right? They want a product that they know they can make a ton of money on. But that's the gamble in this game. And we as inventors, you can pitch 10 products without really getting financially over-invested, because you can build a prototype pretty cheap. You can file a $70 PPA and you can pitch 10 products. And that's a way that I create market validation. Companies, there's a difference between like a venture validation and a licensing validation, because licensing, you're looking for somebody else to take on a lot of those risks. And so when you're looking to license a product and you're looking to validate a marketplace, you are looking to put the product in front of a potential licensee and have them say yes. And what I found is that if you can take a sample size of about dozen and a half, so 12 to 18 companies, if you can get responses from them, the market is going to duplicate. So what I mean by that, you get 12 to 18 responses. The next 12 to 18 responses are going to be pretty proportionally similar to the exact same responses that you got. And so my market validation process is I go get responses from 12 to 18 companies on a product. And this is like, Gary, and I know what you're getting to, because everybody wants to know, like, which product do I start with to get that one licensed? And there are certain things that come into play when you're trying to get your product licensed. It's manufacturability, cost. And one of the more recent concepts I've been really pushing on a lot of my like YouTube videos and the things that I'm working on is there's innovation and then there's profitable innovation. They're two very different things, because I see inventors that come and bring me, they're like, hey, I've got this awesome, cool new invention. And I'm like, yeah, that's cool. That's innovative, but it's not necessarily profitable innovation, because you can have something very simple, not even like very innovative or very like cool, but it's profitable. And those are the type of products that get licensed. And so it's not necessarily the case of how cool the innovation is or even how functional it is. For companies, it's how profitable it is. And so, Gary, it depends on like the lens you're looking through to look at a product. So if you're looking at it in terms of venturing and you want market validation, you got to manufacture it. You got to put it on the shelf and see if people buy it. Then it's validated. If you're looking at it in terms of licensing, you got to put it in front of potential licensees to validate. For me, I go through a bit of a process to figure out what products I want to work on. I've got notebooks, literally boxes of notebooks of ideas. And it's like, which one, right? Which one do you want to follow through on? Which one do you go after? And there's a couple different check boxes that need to be checked for me to move forward on a project. And this is unlike most inventors. Most inventors, they look at their product and say, this is innovative and people need it. Then they move forward on the project without necessarily looking at a lot of the other aspects that make it profitable. And so, the first thing I look at is category. Some categories, and this is something that's almost impossible for the everyday inventor to understand without an experience like I have. I've coached hundreds of people through this process, and being their coach, being their personal coach, they call me up and say, hey, I pitched this product to this company and this is what they said. And so I have all these examples of feedback where, individuals that pitch products into the apparel category have a very, very difficult time. And that's why I say, like, I have these check boxes that an innovation has to go through before I start to spend money or start to work on it. First one is category. Apparel, super difficult to license in. I've had one student out of the 170 students licensed in the apparel category. It's just very difficult space. They don't follow the same rules in terms of intellectual property. It's a different space for licensing. So I don't pursue products there. And without having an experience like I have, nobody would necessarily be able to look at an apparel category and say that's the case. And here's another quirky little category, the baby product category, where the baby products, they are licensable, but they need a lot more intellectual property. A lot of the times companies are not moving forward on a product without granted patents, where a lot of the products that I'm licensing and my students are licensing are working from a point of, they're working from a point of a PPA, right? You get a PPA, your patent pending, and you get a licensing deal without spending the 5 to 10 grand. And so, right, category first. Those categories I check off. High probability categories for licensing: houseware, hardware, pet, novelty, gift, and seasonal. Those are the big ones for the most licensing deals that I see on a regular basis. And so there's a higher probability to license a product within those categories. And so, I sometimes pursue products there. Also, I look at how it can be made. Is it a single mold? Is it multiple materials? And how would they do that? And remember, when I started in this business, I had absolutely no experience with manufacturing. And it's through watching the show How It's Made is where I got all of my knowledge and understanding on how manufacturing works. And so, and some people are like thinking that, you've got to have experience and all this stuff to really understand these things. And you don't. You just have to, start to experience them, and you'll start to get the knowledge you need to start to move forward. And so, so those are the kind of the first check boxes. And the last, or one of the last check boxes is within my wheelhouse, within my skill set. Within my skill set, I cleaned my desk off. I had my products all here. So all of my products, none of them have necessarily moving parts. None of them have electronics. because those things are outside of my wheelhouse. They're just not in my skill set. And so when I look at, 20 inventions, right? 2 of them are in the apparel category. The list just got shorter. 2 of them are in the baby products. List just got shorter. And so by doing that process of kind of shortening your list of product ideas so that you zero in on the ones that are a good category for licensing, they're a profitable innovation, and then they're within your skill set, usually you narrow it down to a handful, and then you can do research on, all right, does this fit within the marketplace? Another criteria that I use is it revolutionary or evolutionary? Revolutionary innovation doesn't really get licensed very often. And that's, and I know I'm getting way deeper on this specific question, but it's such a great question. Revolutionary versus evolutionary. Revolutionary innovation. When I get somebody that comes to me and says, Dave, I've got this revolutionary new product and there's absolutely nothing like it on the market, I say, all right, then drop it. Let's move to the next project. And they just get stopped dead in their tracks because the revolutionary innovation, you have to think about it from a company's perspective, looking at your product. They're like, all right, we know nothing about the market. We know nothing about what the sales could be. We don't know how to make this thing because it's completely revolutionary and nothing else is like it. So they're like the probabilities and things that they know and understand drop lower and lower with every, this is revolutionary, there's nothing like it. Don't use those words in your marketing material because it scares companies. Inventors look at it as being revolutionary, being completely unique, having nothing else like it. Gets inventors excited, but it scares companies because it doesn't give them security in moving forward through their licensing deal and bringing it to the market in a safe way. And that's the reason that they license products, because it's safe. Or they license some products because it's safe. And so those, Gary, are the things that you have to kind of look at when you're looking at market validation. I saw you had a follow-up question with thousands and thousands of people Google searching a solution for a problem via market validation. You're talking about keyword search, keyword planner, where you can see how many search results come in for a certain specific problem. Well, remember this, Gary, every problem has a price. And so if you say, I invented, like everybody, I'm guessing there's a 1 million search criteria for a nail clipper. You say, all right, that's validation. People need it. But let's say your product clips nails perfect every single time. And that's your slogan. Clip your nails perfect every time. But it costs $100 to make. I'm going to drop a couple little golden nuggets in this part here. So if you have a $100 manufacturing cost, you multiply that times 5 to get your minimum retail price. So you're looking at $500 for a product on the shelf. Is your nail clipping problem a $500 problem? And that's what I talk about, a profitable solution or a profitable innovation. And that's the difference, right? When we're validating, even though you can say, Gary, thousands, even millions of people have Googled this, but it doesn't mean that your solution is what is going to help them satisfy that problem, because it has to be, one, profitable to the company that you license it to, and profitable enough that they can pay you a 5 to 7% royalty and get it to the market and sell in volume. So yes, that does help with validation to show that there's been thousands and thousands of search queries for the specific problem that I'm solving, but that doesn't necessarily mean that your problem or your product will basically give all those people the solution that they want. So know that even though that does help with validation, it doesn't necessarily answer the question. I hope that answered your question, Gary. Do come back with more questions if you got them, okay? Ray said, Dave, why is this time a great time for inventions? It is, Ray. Sorry, I almost called you Gary. Ray, right now I am seeing through my own licensing deal that's kicking up some interest, and then also through my students that are licensing products right now, is that companies are coming out of the pandemic and they're seeing that new innovation, right? One product that I was working on, and it was into Walmart. Walmart was like, yes, we want to carry this. This was 2020. This was the depths of the pandemic. Like, we want to carry this. We'll put in an order, right? Let's go. And as we were going through that process, news came down from the head people that they were keeping the product lines all the same throughout all Walmarts. And I mean, that's a huge thing, right? No new innovative products or no new innovative products in retail. And so like innovation stopped from like new products that were coming out early 19 into 20 just stopped. New retailers didn't want any new products. And it was just like all the brakes got pumped. And so now companies are like panic scurrying because like Walmart, Target, all these companies are like, all right, we've been on hold, basically not any new products for the last 2 years. We need new products. Let's go. And so now companies are like, all right, I gotta get some new products here. Like, so it's time, right? That's why I think that I'm seeing an uptick in a lot of new licensing deals coming through. Ray, I hope that answers your question. I saw you have a question down below. I'm going to jump to your next question, then Rick, I'll come back to yours. And everybody, do fire your questions in here. I would appreciate that. So send them on in. Dave, is it very hard to get a licensing deal with fitness products? If so, why? Great question, Ray. It is, but it isn't. So you heard me, I listed off the top 5 categories for licensing. And the reason those top 5 categories for licensing are the top 5 is because there's the highest volume there. And what I mean by that is there's the most, and so like let me divide my screen, right? Look at me. This side is the top 5. So you got your 5: houseware, hardware, pet, novelty, gift, and toy. And the other side is all the other categories. They have the most product turnover. Product life in those categories are 3 to 5 years, new product. Retailers are looking for new products. They got to innovate. They've got to turn these over. Seasonal is even higher volumes. They new ideas, new products, new pitches. And so they have a lot of products. But here's the thing. They've got a lot of competition because a lot of inventors are in this space because they see there's a ton of licensing deals. This is where I want to be. So you look at it and say, all right, on this side, there's a ton of licensing deals, but a ton of competition. On this side, fitness products, industry-specific products like HVAC tools or specific tools to specific industries. There's all these other categories that do licensed products, but there's so much less competition. And so I like the fitness category because a lot of the times products have more staying power, especially if they're good, effective products that get in with the right licensee. And so that would be kind of the whole dichotomy of it, right? Is a ton of licensing deals over here, but less competition over here. And so pitching in a space with less competition, you get in, you have conversations. It's a little bit harder to get in, to be honest, because when you go to a houseware company and you say, hey, my name is David Fito, I'm a product developer. I'm calling to see if you guys look at new products. They say, yep, Bob Smith takes care of that. Here's his extension, and sends you off to those individuals, and they know exactly what to do. They say, email it to here, we'll review it, and we'll get back to you. They have a process where fitness, HVAC, office supplies, all these other categories, even like video equipment, they don't have processes baked in. They don't have a Bob Smith in marketing that specifically takes care of new product innovation submissions. And so when you get in, it's a little bit more work. It's a little bit more conversations, but you're alone. You're not pitching against 25, 30 other inventors. I talked to a company that looks at 1,500 products a year. I'm talking over 100 a month that they're getting, where fitness, HVAC, all these specialty categories, they're looking at like 5 or 6 products a year, maybe 10. And then they pick the best one. It's like, I'd rather work with those results. So Ray, to answer your question, it's harder, but at the same time, it's easier because you have lower competition. They're looking at less product. You have more staying power, but you've got to work the system. You've got to get in front of and be there to have the conversations with them because they're not ready for you. I hope that makes sense. Rick, what additional advice do you have for choosing the top 3 products to focus on within the tool and hardware category when I have 25 plus ideas? Oh, Rick, I know you. Hey, Rick. So personal skill set. All right, now, and this is something, if you go back and watch some of my YouTube videos, I talk about being a category inventor. It's where most of the money's made, is categorical inventors, those inventors that jump around and do not necessarily commit to a category. And this is what Rick's talking about. He wants to be a tool and hardware inventor. He's got 25 ideas. How does he pick which one it is that he feels is going to fly first? Or how do you figure out which idea is going to go first? It's one of the first things is personal skill set. Second thing, Rick, is when you pitch one product, your first product, get in and have conversations with people. Your perspective on selecting product ideas completely changes. And it's something that I cannot teach because it's something that you experience. I can intellectually tell you things, but you won't emotionally know. And when you're selecting products, it's an emotional experience, because when you look at your product, people are drawn to things that make them emotional. And so it's an emotional process of selecting products. And when you go through, you pitch a product, you get some no's and they tell you why. You have this emotional experience of like, all right, that didn't work. So I need to now select products that do fit what they're looking for. And so when I pick a product, when I start in a category, I usually start as simple as possible. Simple as possible is a single piece injection molded piece of plastic that does something, right? And when you do that, you get in front of potential licensees and they say, yeah, this is interesting. We do like it and we can have a conversation about it. And that's where you're going to start to sharpen your tools or your ability to select products better. And the other part is, I never tell people which product to pick, because I'm not always going to be there for you. And it's you learning how to pick your own products that make you a better inventor or a better individual that can turn this into a full-time career. And let me give you an example of that. One of my students, this was years and years ago, his name was Ben. He was working his butt off, right? He was doing a great job and he was pitching products. He was working in the houseware category. He had pitched a product and it was a tea infuser. And the tea infuser had, it was characters, it had multiple colors. It was this very ornate tea infuser. And he pitched to the companies and pitched it to 25 companies and they all said no. And finally he got a hold of one, was like, why is this a no? Like, what's going on? And he's like, well, I mean, to be honest, most silicone tea or most tea infusers that we make are out of silicone. And to make a product out of silicone that's multiple colors is very difficult and very expensive. So even though your product is cool, it's not necessarily a good product for licensing because it'd be super expensive. And we need to sell your single tea infuser for like $30 or $40, putting it out of the price point. He just had an experience where he learned something that changes the way he selects a product and moves it forward. Because now he knows that when he invents a product, he looks at it and says, all right, this tea infuser will not work because it needs to be made out of silicone. It's multiple colors. It will drive the price up and it will get myself above the price point problem, right? Your tea infusers, they're what, $14, $14.99 at most, maybe $20 for really nice ones. And those are like the silicone ones that you like stuff tea in, pack it together and float it in your tea. And so like he was creating a $30 product or $40 product with all his colors. And it just didn't make sense for the marketplace. So Rick, it's all about having these little experiences to guide your product selection, because after that, he selected different products and you have 3 or 4 of those different experiences and you start to narrow down and get really focused on selecting products that are very licensable or much more licensable than when you originally start. I guarantee once you go and pitch your product and have an experience where companies tell you no and give you any reason why, you'll look at your list of 25 and there'll be a couple products on there that you were thinking about doing next that you'll say, no way, it doesn't work for this reason. But to give you like some concrete stuff on moving forward with top 3 products to focus on, usually stay inside your wheelhouse, things you can usually prototype. If you're not good with electronics, don't try to do a power tool. I mean, that essentially is my like number one thing to start with. When you're getting started, don't get outside your focus of ability or your skill set, because, you know, the complexity of my beer pitcher, if everybody's familiar with that, it's a single piece injection molded plastic product that has function. It was super simple, but at the same time, it was very complex in terms of bringing it to market. Not very complex, but had some complexity because of manufacturing, design. And this was a single piece injection molded piece of plastic. If it had moving parts, remember, when you add something that moves, right? Well, let's say moves under power. Well, when you add power to something, you now need a way to either charge batteries or power the power supply. And then are you using rechargeable battery, or are you using like AAAs or like, you know, little Duracell batteries, or are you plugging it into the wall? How are you figuring out how the motor is going to be powered? So those are all questions that sometimes honestly fall back in the inventor. Other times companies, they look at it and say, that I love that innovation. We know exactly how to make it. We'll send it over to our engineers. They'll take care of it. That happens sometimes. Other times they look to the inventor and say, this is very cool. Can you send us a prototype? How does this thing function? Then it comes back on us. So that's why I say, stay in your wheelhouse, stay in your skill set. Get products that are simple, stay within a category. And Rick, even in tool and hardware, I got to get back from my screen, is this big. In that, there's hand tools. In that, there's paint tools. In that, there's outside, you know, gardening tools. So like tools and hardware, get down to this. You know what I mean? Find a category even smaller than tool and hardware and try to focus 3 or 4 ideas within that space so that you can be presenting multiple products to a company over a period of time. And that will change the probability of your outcome. Rick, I hope that helps answer your question. Do send over more if you've got them. Dale, thank you for coming out tonight. I have a provisional patent on a product and the expiration on the year is coming up in September, and I haven't had a chance to move forward with it yet. A patent attorney is sharing with me that you really can't submit the same idea again unless you dramatically change within the product. Is this true? And if so, what do you suggest I do if I need to protect my idea past a year? So Dale, I mean, if a patent attorney is telling you this, then I would listen to him. My experience, I have not had that. I have personally resubmitted the same PPAs, but realize this, you have to you lose a year, right? And I don't know anything about dramatically changing it. You can resubmit the same documents, but hopefully over the last year, you've learned something and you can add to that document. But, you know, you have to look at, there's 2 different things at play here. And I have to, you know, disclose to you, obviously I'm not an attorney. And if an attorney's telling you this is the case, then follow your attorney's advice. But for me, I'm looking at it in terms of a business perspective. Business perspective, it doesn't necessarily make sense to spend 5 to 10 grand filing a patent on a product I don't know if I'm going to make any money at yet, especially if I haven't presented to companies. And so a lot of times, if I get stuck in that position where I haven't made it to the point where I want to, I'll refile the provisional patent application. I'll hopefully add to it, which I usually do, of anything that I've learned over the last year, knowing that I have lost a year of my priority date. And that's the risk you have to take. If you're in a market where intellectual property is highly competitive, you probably need to move to the utility patent if you want to hold your date. But like most of the stuff that I personally have worked in, it's not highly competitive intellectual property. You know, I'm not in pharmaceuticals. I'm not in, you know, high tech rocket technology. I'm doing very simple, straightforward things that make money. And so, from my understanding, and I guess this attorney might feel differently, is that you can refile your provisional patent application, you get another year of patent pending, but you lose the previous year. You can't extend it. It's that you're filing a new document, you're filing a new filing, you're getting a new 12 months, you're not being able to go back to the original filing date. So if anything happens in that 12 months, you lose. So know and understand that risk. But it's a business decision, because you know, if I paid 5 to 10 grand every time I ran into the end of my PPAs, I would have been broken out of this business before I made it. Because when you're getting started, you don't necessarily know what to do. And so the 12 months comes out on you quick. You're like, oh, I can file this. I've got 12 months to make it happen. No problem. And it does come up on you. And you don't necessarily know why or like what you're doing. So like the time gets away from you. And so when I was getting started, a lot of time I'd have to file a PPA. I'd work on it. I wouldn't get to the progress that I'd hoped to. Then I'd end up filing another PPA and getting a licensing deal in the second 12-month period, but I'd only be able to go back to my second filing date. And with the dramatically changing it, I would, and this is essentially what I did, is over a 12-month period, I learned more about the product, so I was able to add to it. But I don't know, and you can't quote me on this, but like having to dramatically change it, I don't think that's necessarily the case, but I don't know that for sure, especially if it's coming from a patent attorney. So Dale, I hope that answered your question. Okay, awesome. You already said thank you. All right, cool. Let me jump over to the chat. Got a couple questions over here. Gary, what are your top 5 categories for products that are easiest to license? The 5 that I said earlier: houseware, hardware, pet, novelty gift, seasonal, and toy. That's the 5 categories where I see the most amount of licensing deals, but most competitive. So, and Gary, you know, when I talked about earlier on the webinar, the categorical inventor, somebody that picks a category. And when I was talking to Rick earlier, I said, houseware hardware is like this. If you pick something like paint tools, you're able to license more products and they go out essentially to a bigger market. So being a category inventor is the easiest way to license the most amount of products. Ray said, I really appreciate you and your team helping me with my invention. Of course, Ray, you're the best. Your friend Ray. Ray, I appreciate that. Thank you. Edward said, we have a new patented full color 3D holographic screen projector. We know a huge phone manufacturer wants them, but the middleman won't get out of the way, taking forever to find the right guy to reconnect with. Edward, I'm not sure. I might need some more information on this. 3D holographic screen projector, you know, phone manufacturer. So if you've already generated interest, it sounds like you have an agent that's in the middle of it. And your agent, if he's not doing the right things, then obviously you got to get him out of this deal and get connected. So I'm sorry, I don't know how to help you. But if you have more information or a specific question on, like, I guess how to get the middleman out or who the middleman is, and how to move forward, do type that in and I'll hopefully be able to answer that for you. So, but thank you, Edward, for tuning in tonight. Tamika, what's the best practice / cautionary tales when moving from PPA pending, patent pending, trademark, prototype to production? Thank you, Tamika. So, see, I'm sitting back in my chair, getting thinking about this. What's the best practices and cautionary tales to moving from PPA? So, I guess it's hard. It's hard for me because I guess I can do. Okay, follow-up question here. Yes, to obtain a PPA approval from missing your deadline, required modification to resubmit this PTO, else no patent, thus the reason my patent is still pending. So, okay, the optimal scenario is where you file a PPA, you pitch to companies, you get interest, they pay for the patent, they use your PPA to move it to a full utility patent. Optimal scenario. We don't always work in optimal scenarios. We, we do what we can when we can. And so you said trademark, prototype, production. All this depends on if you get interest, because I look at patents as absolutely useless. They're you know, $5,000 to $10,000 wastes of money if you're not monetizing, if you don't have a path to cash. And because I have tons of friends and people in this business that they are like, yep, look at, I got a patent on my wall, and see, I did it. I got a patent. I'm an inventor. And like, they didn't figure out a way to make money at it, where I figure out how to make money at it first. And then once I make money at it first, then the patent stuff comes after that. And so a lot of times you want to almost stay in the patent pending status until you find a potential licensee that will want to move forward with it at that point. And when you said TM, I use what's called common law trademark. I use the TM if I've created a brand that I like. And then I put that on my sell sheet, my marketing material, everything that I sell, to then convey to them, this is a trademark that I'd like to use. And so then if they feel that it's something that they love, because you know, you can spend $1,000, or you know, I think the filing fees are like $350 for getting a trademark. So you can spend all this money, right? 10,000 on a patent, $1,000 on trademarks, prototypes, all this different stuff you can spend money on. You can usually get 15 to 20 grand in before anything really happens. You don't have to. I mean, I usually get interest before I spend $100. And that's kind of my rule of thumb, is I get interest before I spend more than $100. And so when you're in this position, like sometimes inventors get stuck because they've already filed the utilities patent. They've already spent, you know, $4 or $5 grand to get the attorney to write it all up. They filed it. Now they don't have interest. Now they're like, all right, I've got this patent. I've got to pay for office actions. I've got to pay for all these different things to move it forward. But I don't have that interest that I need. And it's like, all right, we need to go back to square one and start at the foundation. Education and understanding what the process is of monetization. Monetization is so important in the licensing and invention game. It's too many people out there that have an invention that think like the first thing they hear from every friend and family member, oh, you've got an invention, go get a patent. Mistake. And so and you said to obtain a PPA approval after missing a year deadline. You can't, if you miss the 1 year deadline, that PPA essentially does not exist anymore. So you can't like retroactively go back and get in your ear and bring it forward. Because to give you a little bit deeper explanation than you probably need, a PPA is a provisional patent application. It's an application that you submit to the USPTO. And that's what it is, essentially an application. And they just don't cancel your application for 12 months. And so like people look at these as like, all right, I've got patent pending, I can protect my product. No. You have an application that's submitted. That's all that is an application submitted with the USPTO and United States Patent and Trademark Office, where they don't cancel it for 12 months. Nobody looks at it. Nobody reviews it. It goes into a black hole. And then if you do file for a utility patent, they go back and pull that forward and say, yep, this is what they talked about. So Tamika, you can't really go back after missing a deadline and like retroactively pull a patent forward. So you would, moving forward, you'd want to get your new PPA filed with all of the new information that you have, and make sure that it hasn't been publicly disclosed within the 12 months or prior to 12 months before. Sorry, this timeline thing is difficult. So like if your filing date is July 28th, 2021, you can't have publicly disclosed it since July 28th, 2020. So if you haven't publicly disclosed it, then you're able to file your PPA. That gives you a 12-month period where you then have the application in to get to utility filing. So Tamika, I hope that helps. I hope that gets your question. I'd love it if you gave me any more like follow up. I can kind of fill in any gaps for you there. So yeah, and I appreciate you coming out tonight. Dave, did I make a mistake by getting a utility patent on my invention before I had an interest in my invention? I guess I don't think about it as like a mistake. I look at it as learning experiences. Uh, a lot of people get over-invested in products and innovation before they have interest, right? And my rule of thumb is I get interest before I spend more than $100. Once I get interest, then it's worth it, right? I've got a company, great example. I had a company, I spent less than $100. I, went to Walmart, got a little, Frankenstein parts and pieces, glued these things together, made a video on my phone, just shot a video like this and sent it off to a company, filed a $70 PPA. So in all, I was $90 in, sent that into a company, got interest. Company comes back, says, we're interested. We love this. We need to know more. We need to understand this. And I was like, all right, awesome. How would this deal work out if we were to take this forward? They said, we'd license it from you. We'd pay you 5% of sales. And we essentially laid out how the whole deal would work. And knowing that, now I'm making an investment in something I know and understand, where they say, all right, this is what our sales are going to be. This is how much you would get. And so you can say, all right, I'll make $10,000 a month, and they need for me to file a $5,000 patent. Yes, that investment's worth it to me. $10,000 for $10,000 a month for 17 years, or however long it takes them to get the product to market, is worth a $5,000 investment for me getting a utility patent. But a lot of inventors, they go out there and they hear from friends and family or people around them, oh, you've got an invention, go get a patent. And right, they get 5 to 10 grand in, and now they've got to figure out a way to get it back out. And so that's where the trouble usually shows up, is now you've got this pretty plaque on your wall that says, hey, I have, this patent, but I don't necessarily know how to make money at it. So Ray, I don't like calling it a mistake, because everybody learns, right? The next time you go through this, you're going to go through this. You say, oh, well, I'm not going to spend the 5 to 10 grand. I'm going to use a provisional patent application, spend $70 to have my product be patent pending, pitch my product and generate interest before I get 5 to 10 grand in a utility patent or more. And so that's what will help you moving forward but now you've got a great product, great pitch, utility patent protection. It makes it a package that companies really are interested in. Now it's just figuring out if it's a profitable innovation. And that's the part we don't know until you actually get it in front of potential licensees. That's why I love the $100 or less approach, is get it in front of them, have them say, yes, this is something we want to license. We see that it being profitable. Then you can make investments in it. So Ray, I hope that helps. Dale, another question. And thank you, Dale, for another question. I've spoken to a couple companies similar to yours in regards to helping inventors get their product licensed, and the advice that I have been given have been all across the board. One company is saying that the advantage of an inventor is that it is cheap, that typically you don't need a prototype, and another person wants a prototype because you have to know the costs or the parts measured and tooling. Perhaps it depends on the product. Another contradiction is the patent. One consultant firm said that typically you can have the company pay for the patent and you can get that in the licensing agreement. Another company said, no way. That if that was the case, why do they need you? What's been your experience? Dale, first thing you do is you look at their experience. So you look at a consulting firm, what's their success? How many products have they brought to market through licensing? And the contradictions come from obviously different viewpoints. There's 100 ways to skin a cat. There's, to be on time, there's this billionaire race to the moon. They're all going there with rockets, but they're all using different technologies. And so, and I guess I'm assuming a lot of the technologies are all the same, but there's going to be contradictions. And this is one of the biggest, I'm going to get in on this one. So this is one of the biggest problems right now with inventions and licensing, is you go out there and you watch a YouTube video and one guru says, do this. So you go out there and spend thousands of dollars and do that. And then you get to the point of, you're like, all right, I completed that task that guru told me. And now what do I do? And they go listen to another guru or read another book. And you start going down that path. And so inventors, they sit there and they bounce through all these different firms and advice, and they're contradicting each other. And so like if I get an inventor that has all this contradictory advice from other people, like I never take on a client that is currently working with anyone else, because they're going to get contradictory advice to what I give. And it's not that the others are wrong, but here's the thing, Dale, you need to ask and talk to them about their success. I've coached over 170 people successfully through this process. And so, you know, you may say, well, Dave's advice is better than somebody else's advice, but who's to say who's right and who's wrong? Because that person probably has a level of success also. So you need to kind of take all of the advice and say, what is it? What's right for me? You know, and if the firm that's telling you there's no way a company would license a product without a patent, well, I mean, that's true in some categories. That's absolutely true in some categories. So they may only have licensing experience in those categories where, like, cosmetics, maybe they work in the cosmetics category, and that is a category where granted patents are what is needed. And so you actually need to file and get your patent granted before you're going to get somebody to license your product. And so they're right. But I guess I'm looking at it and I'm giving advice in a general sense for a lot or the majority of consumer products. But there are carve-outs. There are things that contradict. Even the advice that I give, I can contradict myself with carve-outs. And that's why it's important to look to and find somebody that has a lot of success in what you're doing and has a lot of success in replicating or helping other people go through the process of getting products licensed, or helping other people and teaching other people and getting products licensed. And then follow that one person. Put your blinders on and quit listening to other people, because that one person is going to give you advice and say, go do this. And then you're going to look at a YouTube video, get contradiction. I'm going to go even deeper into this topic, is that certainty is your number one thing you need to have to move things forward. And why I say that is, let's say, Dale, I told you with 100% certainty, if you pick up the phone and call this company, you will get a licensing deal. What are you going to do today? You're going to call that company, right? Because you have certainty, because that is what is going to happen. But what happens when you start to listen to all these gurus and they're telling you all this different advice? Your certainty level goes from here to here, and you become a person that takes no action. And what my objective is as a coach is to get you to take the correct action moving forward to get you to license products. And so that's one of the reasons I don't take on students that are in other programs, that have other firms, that have other things going on. I said, get done with that, because I can't have another coach in your ear contradicting you or contradicting me, because then you won't have the certainty in moving yourself forward. So that's what you need to kind of look at and see, where do I want to go? How do I want to get there? And who can help me? I asked for testimonials from people who have gone through the program and got licensing deal, and the only company gave me a person, and I did speak to him, which was good. Awesome. That's great. Talk to people. It helps. Gary, thanks for answering the question. I hope someday I'll be one of your 170. Well, hopefully, Gary, by the time you're in, it'll be over 170. I guess technically I'm at like 174, 175. I go in blocks of 10 now. So hopefully it's soon. Only from one company. Sorry. No worries, Dale. That question got me excited, because I feel like I can help people, and I can get them going in the right direction. How do you get the initial meeting to pitch your product? How do you identify who to contact within companies, and how do you gain their audience? Not sure if this was already covered. No, it wasn't. I'm going to start cranking through. We only have 10 minutes left, so if you do have questions, type them in. I'm going to go like hot seat style as fast as I can. How do you get the initial meeting to pitch your product? call their headquarters and say, hi, my name is David Fidowa. I'm a product developer. I'm calling to see if you look at new products. They say, yep, this person takes care of it. Sometimes they say, I don't know what you're talking about. And one of the things is on my website, inventtribe.com, there's calling scripts. So go on the website, there's a button, I think at the top for calling scripts. It might be in, actually, I think I call it the Inventor Toolbox, but it comes with the Inventor calling scripts. And it's essentially the script that I use. You're just calling the headquarters because, and this was one of the biggest, not biggest, but one of the issues that I see quite often is inventors want to call a person. They want to know Bob Smith. They need to call that person to make sure that they're the ones that they're talking to. In reality, we don't know until we call. And so what I mean by that is a lot of inventors, they're like, well, I want to call and talk to the CEO because they're the decision maker. Very bad decision for an inventor to do that. But to find out who to talk to, you just call them and ask them. And they say, yep, we look at innovation and this is the person that takes care of it. And then they transfer you. But like when I'm saying this, right, I'm making it sound very simple. This happens over like 5 to 10 phone calls. So like you call them up, they don't answer. You call them up 3 or 4 more times, finally somebody answers. And then you ask them and they say, yeah, Bob Smith in this department takes care of it. Let me transfer you. And then you transfer them, they don't pick up. So then you got to call 3 or 4 more times to actually talk to Bob. And so like inventors, they don't put forth enough force or effort into their process of getting the product licensed because they call once and say, see, Dave, it didn't work. And they reinforce their belief that they can't do it. In reality, they just didn't put enough force or effort into the process of actually getting the product through and to the right people. So you need to call 5 to 10 times before you're actually going to talk to the right person. And you call and you talk to somebody and you ask them who it is that you talk to. And then you got to call 5 or 10 more times to actually talk to that person. And then they say, yeah, send me an email. You're never actually pitching in person. They don't like doing that. It's a waste of time. It's a waste of your time. You're wasting your time. You need to put together a 30 to 60 second product demonstration video that you can put in their hands or email to them so that they can see it, they can review it, they can send it to their colleagues and say, hey, colleague, I found this interesting product that I think we can launch. What do you think? Email sent with a YouTube link, not a public one, untitled, unlisted YouTube video so that it can't be seen by the public, but it can be seen by the people that that have the video link. And so in doing that, they can pass it around the office. They can, sorry, I've been talking here. My voice is getting on fire. I should have brought a water. But you get to get it in front of them and then they get to pass it around the office virtually and they get to say, yep, this is a product we want to go with. Then they reach back out to you and say, hey, we gotta have some conversations about getting a product on the shelf selling. So I hope that helps or gives you some insight into getting into the right people. Ray said, thank you, Dave. I've listened a lot tonight. Sounds like Ray had to take off. Thank you, Ray. Tamika, thank you. Ouchie, that's me. Did everything backwards. 501c3, yep, PPA, pending, prototype, TMA, all done without interest confirmed or monetization. CPR instructor, stroke, survivor, invented. The hack. Man, sorry, I'm not pronouncing it right. Mobile CPR jaw. Sweet. I'm gonna look that up after this. Tamika, yes, you want to generate interest. Like corporate structure is something that can come afterwards. PPA filing, it's something you do before pitching, but it's something before PPA is before interest, but before filing utility patent. So that should kind of help move through the process. Do email me if you have any more questions, david@inventtribe.com. That will definitely help if you want to get a little more in depth on this. And so I've got like 5 more questions. I'm going to get them in 5 minutes. Can I do it? Hi, David. Any good attorney to register a new trademark? Yes. My attorney, and I'm going to jump back on and email you his email. It's Mike Mershak. He's my attorney. He does all my trade work, patent work, copyright stuff. So I will send you his email address so you can reach out to him. Ozzy, I have an idea and novelty a company is interested in and have put it in their green file for the next meeting. Where to from here? Wait for their green light or start asking about contract sales volumes or royalty sheet? So Ozzy, it depends on a couple different things. And this is the hardest part about kind of giving blanket language to move or help people move forward is there's specific things that need to happen or specific things that need to be understood. All right, so they took your product. They said, this is interesting. I'm going to put it in a green file for our next meeting. It means it's green lighted until we talk about it. Well, what other information does that person need to help them present a great product? Because, and I like to use the name Bob Smith. Bob Smith is the individual that looks at new products, compiles them and says, hey, this is interesting. I'd like to, show this to the rest of the group, right? So they've made or seen the product, they review it and they say, yes, we love this. What do they do next, right? They just put your sell sheet in a little folder and then they meet quarterly and they present. Well, you need to call that person up and say, hey, I'm super excited about you guys presenting this product, but is there anything else you need from me that can help you present this to the rest of the group? And they might say, yeah, if you did a video demonstration. And so then you do your add-on, more marketing material or more presentation material. So they'll ask you different questions. That's great. Write them down. Most of the time, you're not going to know how to do it or what to do. But the thing is that you need to find out what it is that they need. And a lot of times I like to call because when you send them an email, you're literally black and white, right? You send them an email and all they see is just text on a page. They haven't talked to a human being, and humanizing yourself is one of the best ways to actually close licensing deals. So I love calling them up on the phone and saying, hey, Bob, this is David Fidoa. I've got the new, fruit mat that preserves your fruit faster, longer, fresher. Sorry, I got my own pitch for that. But, and so I was calling, I know you're presenting to the group. Is there anything else you'd need to help this product along? And I did that for a company. The company came back and said, yes, we do need something. We need to see all angles of the product. We need to see it. And they were kind of like laying out, this is what we need. And so I did a video. This video is as simple as this. I set up my camera and I just said, hey, Bob at ABC company, really excited you guys are interested in this. Here's the product. Let me see if I got this is an old prototype. This is a dish towel hanger that holds your other stuff. But I'd be like, hey, Bob, this is the new innovative product. This is how it works. It bends down in half. You suction cup to a surface, and then it's a plier hinge, and it hinges down and suction cups hard to your sink or countertop surface. And when it's on that countertop surface, it sits there and it holds your dish scrubber. And then also you can hang a dish towel over the top. And so I did this video, right? It's as simple as that. It's even this rough as a cut. And then I just say, thank you so much, ABC company. Really excited to work with you guys. I just turned myself into a human being. I demonstrated the product. I showed them up close what it is. They pause the video. They look at it. They see how it's made. And it helps them with their process of getting the product licensed and on the shelf because they know and understand a little bit more about it. I hope that helped. Call them up, have a conversation, Ozzy, and get in the door. Turn yourself into a human being. See what kind of resources they need to help you move this forward. Thank you so much, Dave. Tony Graham's building on the question from Dale. I also have a PPA expiring in 3 to 4 months. I filed with a lawyer initially. Can I now resubmit it myself? I believe so. I don't know. Yeah. I don't see or understand why you wouldn't be able to, unless there's something in your, I don't know I forget what it's called when you sign with an attorney that you're using them only. But you'd have to make sure, read through that document that you can take their document and resubmit it. Submitting for a much less expensive price, no lawyer fees. Yeah, and submitting to the USPTO is $65 or $70 just for the filing fee if you're a micro entity. Micro entity is like you don't have 4 or more patents. You have to have less than 4 patents, and you have to make less than, I think, $216,000 a year as an individual. And so that puts you in micro entity. That makes it $70. If you're not micro entity and you make more than that, then it's $140. And so, yeah, you do save a lot on the attorney's fees. The attorney's fees, you can hand it over to your attorney, the document, and have them file it. And it's like, all right, it's $500. Filing fee was $70. my fee was $430. And so it's like, yeah, you can get by with filing stuff yourself. So I believe that you can. I'm not 100% sure. Look through your documents with your attorney, but you should have that document and should be able to submit it again. Hopefully you've learned some things over the last year and you can add to that document so you can beef up your PPA. So thank you, Tony, for coming out. Appreciate the question. We got last question of the night. Corda, I hope I'm pronouncing your name right. I'm sorry if I'm botching it. Can you launch a product startup and license the same product to your competition in the market at the same time? Technically, yes. So yeah, you can. You'd have to disclose the fact that you're launching it. It's a great strategy, honestly, because a lot of the times what startups are doing is they're starting and they're launching online. They're starting online stores. I've partnered with inventors that are doing this in a way where they launch their online store and then I go help them take it retail in terms of I take it to a partner. I license it to them, or the inventor obviously can license it to a company that goes into retail. So the product then goes into retail. The inventor launches a startup where it goes into online. Online is there's way lower barrier to entry. And so a lot of times when startups are they're starting selling online, then they're moving into retail where you can actually license portions of your business off and get them selling into retail. More than likely, they're not going to sell under your brand. They're going to rebrand it under their brand. So they're going to take your stuff off. They're going to put their stuff on and they're going to sell it. So it's not going to give you brand recognition if you're hoping for that. If you're going to make the initial molds or the initial investments, this is much more possible. If you're looking for another company to do this, then it's a little more difficult because, sorry to jump over Dale, my email address is david@inventtribe.com. But so when companies are launching new innovation, right, they look at your product, they say, hey, this is awesome. We'd love to launch this, right? They're spending anywhere from 5 to 50, sometimes 6 figures on getting your product on the shelf, selling and making money. And so, their large investment is paid back because when new innovative products come out on the market, they get a premium, right? So there's like regular pricing and then new innovative products, they get this premium. And so they make their money back by being able to sell at a premium. But if right away they know that they have competition. So most of the time companies, when they're launching a new product and they're making all the initial investments, they are keeping an exclusive on the product for at least a time period. And so what they would want is they'd say, we get an exclusive for 3 years, 5 years, or the existence of the product if we're going to make the initial investment. But if you make the initial investment and you're essentially going to let them white label and sell into retail or into another market, they would probably do it. Especially it gives them another product, another avenue to make money, and they don't have to make the initial investments. Very probable, very probable. So that's the way I would do it. And so I hope that answers your question. Last question of the night. We're over by 4 minutes, but Brian said, well, let me check the other, my other chat box, make sure I don't have anything else. Brian said, is LinkedIn a good source to reach out to companies to send my sell sheet to? It is, but it isn't. I recommend getting on the phone and having conversations with people. So realize this. You as an individual have different habits and different tendencies in your life. So, I mean, like, Brian, think about yourself here and think about the way that you work. If somebody, and actually, here's a great example. If somebody sends me a message on WhatsApp, I do have WhatsApp, but if somebody sends me a message on it, usually I don't get back to them for 3-4 weeks or a month because I just don't use WhatsApp. And so, like, Brian, if you're reaching out to somebody on LinkedIn and they just don't use the messaging platform or they don't use LinkedIn regularly, you're not going to get responses from them often. And so the way I look at pitching is I look at every individual has about 10 doors: calling door, voicemail door, email door, texting door, LinkedIn door, Facebook message door, their secretary door. And so, like, you have all these different doors, right? And if you sit there and you constantly knock on one door and you're not getting an answer, that's your fault, because you need to knock on all the doors, because that individual has a personal tendency of a path of communication. I had one student, they spent 3 months messaging somebody on LinkedIn. Like once a week, they'd send them a message, very friendly. Hey, just, wondering if you guys look at new innovation, blah, 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 blah. And no answers, 3 months. They call, the person answers on the first call. All they had to do was pick up the phone, call the company and say, hey, is Bob in? Can you transfer me their extension? Brings to the office, they pick up, and had a conversation right then and there about, they take new innovation. Here's my email address, send it on over. I'd love to see it. Thing is, they just sat there and knocked on the wrong door for 3 months and wasted all their own time, because they didn't want to get uncomfortable and get on the phone and not be able to answer the questions, or like they were uncomfortable. And so like a lot of people love to sit behind this veil and say, LinkedIn is the way to go. Well, it can be, but it's not always the best way. It's not always the most successful way. And so go knock on all the doors so that you can find a way to get in and have conversations with people. So thank you so much. I really had a ton of fun on this Q&A. If you are interested in becoming one of my students inside my group, inside my tribe, we do have a product licensing specialist, Hazel. She helps people figure out if our program's right for us or right for you, if we match up in terms of our goals. And so if you're interested, book a call with her to have a conversation about getting into the tribe. So if you're interested, I'd love to have you in and hopefully get you to be my 170 or 171. I guess technically it'd be 175, 175th student. So do come to the tribe. Also, this Sunday, I'm doing a live webinar breaking down the 5 steps on how to license your product. So if you're interested, check out the website or the link here in the chat to either book the appointment to talk with our team member or to get in on the Sunday night webinar, breaking down the 5 steps of getting your product licensed. So I appreciate everybody for coming out today. And we will see you all soon. And do message me if you have any questions. David@inventtribe.com is my email address if you need anything else. So have a wonderful night. Let's go get some deals and change your life. Talk to everybody soon.